Hello everyone, I'm back today with another video recipe. We are making bakery style chewy dinner rolls today, and I hope you enjoy it. Here are all the ingredients that you will need to make this bun. If you are interested, then keep on watching, and also all the amounts and ingredients will be listed in the bottom bar. The first thing we will do is to activate the yeast. We can do that by adding a little bit of the sugar we measured earlier into the lukewarm milk and sprinkle in the yeast. After the active dry yeast is mixed in, you want to place the milk mixture in a warm place so the yeast can be activated. So I let it sit for about 5 minutes or so and it starts to bubble, and here is when you know that it's activated and it's ready to use. Now we can start build up our dough mixture. I like to put in my wet ingredients first, so like the milk, the yeast, and I like to crack in my egg and kind of stir it around and break up the yolk first. And just a friendly reminder that all my ingredients are in room temperature, like my eggs, the milk, and the butter I am using, just to make sure that everything is at the right temperature and at the same temperature, so when everything gets married together, it will combine nicely. So in that little bowl, I had sugar and salt together in the same bowl. So just add that in and stir it around. Now we can add in the bread flour and just dump it into the KitchenAid stand mixer, or if you are kneading by hand, either way you want. And then we can add in one optional ingredient. It is the dry milk powder. It will just add more flavor to the dough itself. So now we can attach the dough hook attachment to the stand mixer and just start this baby. If you are using a stand mixer, I like to start slow and gradually build up the speed so flour won't be flying everywhere around the house. And remember that butter that we measured out, we will add it once a dough ball is formed, and I will tell you when to add it. And I didn't forget about you guys that like to knead your own bread. If you are kneading it by hand, you want to first knead it into a dough ball first, and then add in your butter, knead that in, and continue kneading for about 10 to 15 minutes or so until the dough is elastic. Then we can proceed to the next step. But if you are mixing by a stand mixer, the dough will start looking like this after about a couple minutes. You first want to knead it for about 5 minutes using a stand mixer until it forms a dough ball like what the screen is showing. And now you can add in your butter, but if you find your dough to be a little dry, feel free to add in about a tablespoon of water at a time and mix it in before you add in your butter. Once you feel like your dough is at a right consistency, it's not too dry nor too wet or moist, then you can add in the butter. And continue mixing the butter with the dough for about 10 to 15 minutes or so. Mine took about 12 minutes until it became really elastic and supple. So it depends on the mixer and it depends on the flour you are using. So once in a while, I like to go in with the spatula and just scrape the sides down to make sure all the ingredients are mixed well and mixed in. And just continue mix away. Once you see that the dough begins to pull off from the side of the bowl, it's not clinging to the side of the bowl or whatsoever, it's very clean, you know that your dough is almost finished. Just let it turn for another 1 to 2 minutes, and then you can pull it out and let it ferment. While the dough is still finishing up, I am going to grab a big Tupperware. You can use a glass container whatsoever, whichever you have handy, and just grease it with butter or oil. I'm using olive oil here. And then you can just grab the dough ball and form it into a dough ball, basically, and just dump it into the Tupperware that you are using. And make sure that you don't leave any bits of dough behind because every bit is precious. We spend a lot of time and love onto it. To form the dough ball, I like to pull from the sides and just tug it onto the bottom and just keep on going onto all sides. Before you know it, after that, all that tucking, you will get a nice and round dough ball. It will be smooth and fluffy. and you want to ferment the dough for about an hour or until it doubles in size. I like to put it in a warm place like the oven that's turned off so that it will keep it insulated. Cover the dough with a plastic wrap so it will keep it insulated and it will keep all the dust away from it. And I also like to put a towel on top of it too. So now onto the fermentation setup. I like to put it inside the oven with a container of hot water to keep the humidity and the temperature in the oven consistent. If the water cools down, I just like to switch off the water. But other than that, I like to close the door and just let it sit in there for about an hour until it rises. So an hour passed by, my dough has already risen double the size. I can just pull it out from the oven and jiggle it out. Once we jiggle it out, we can remove all the excess bubbles and we can start working the dough so we get that chewy effect. And remember, we are going to do about 6 folds of the dough. So we are going to do the first fold now, and then if you need a little bit of flour to just kind of dry up the hands and make sure the dough is not so sticky, go ahead and do so, but make sure that you don't overly flour the dough because it will become very dry. So I like to make it into a very long rectangle using a rolling pin first and then fold it into 3 folds. And then continue with this process for about 5 more times because we are going to make a total of 6 folds, and I'm probably going to repeat this a couple more times. So make it into a long rectangle and then fold it into like a book. As you work the dough more, you will feel that it will not feel as easy to work with as the beginning because the gluten has already tensed up. So if you feel that you can't roll it out anymore, feel free to let it rest for about 10 to 15 minutes, like in the middle of the turns. So if after my fold here, if I feel like I couldn't fold it anymore, then I'll just cover it with a plastic wrap and let it sit for 10-15 minutes and then roll it out again. Once the gluten is relaxed, it will be a lot easier to fold and roll it out. So remember, you are going to fold it for a total of 6 times, and then if it's hard to roll out, then remember to let it relax for about 10 to 15 minutes and then you can start rolling again. So after 6 roll out and folds, I'm going to cut the dough into 15 equal pieces. I'm just using a scale here for accuracy, but if you don't have one, no worries, just kind of guesstimate. And if you are going to use a 13 by 9 inch pan like what I'm going to be using, then make sure that you cut it out about 15 pieces. And if you are using a bigger or smaller pan, feel free to make adjustments according to your pan size. And once you have all your pieces cut out and you want to make sure that you form it into a little circle so we can make the shape later. So what I do is that how I made the big dough ball, I'm just going to tug in the ends and then just using my palm and make it into a circle using circular motions on the table. And cover all the little miniature dough balls using a plastic wrap and let it rest about 15 minutes. While they are resting, you want to grease the pan that you are using. So I'm just going to use some butter and just grease the pan generously. A caution here is that you want to make sure you grease it very generously because I don't think that I put enough. So my buns, after they baked, it kind of stuck a little, so I have a very difficult time trying to get them out. So do what I say, don't do what I do. Or you can line it with parchment. That's a better option. So we are going to make 15 miniature loaves. So how I do it is that I first make it into a very long rectangle and then fold it over and then roll that small rectangle out again. So once that rectangle is rolled out, I am just going to take the end and roll it in a little bit and then keep rolling inwards until I get a small miniature roll. And continue rolling out all the rolls and then we are going to be almost there. So I'm just going to show you in fast motion on how to roll out the dough again. Once they are all done, you want to place them nicely onto the pan and then put it back in the oven to proof for another hour, or they double in size. And don't forget about the plastic wrap that covers on top. Once they are done poofing, they should look something like this. Don't worry, the cracks and holes will be covered later after they're done baking. Just lightly brush a light coating of egg wash onto the buns so after they are baked, they can be very nice and golden brown. Bake these buns in a preheated 350 Fahrenheit oven for about 20 to 25 minutes or until the top is golden brown. So after they're done baking, pull it out and let it cool for about a minute or so, and then you want to run a knife across the sides of the pan. Just make sure that it comes out nice and loose. Remember how I told you guys to grease the pan heavily at first? This is what happened to me because I had such a difficult time removing them from the pan. Me and my mom took about 5 minutes to actually try to scrape the bottom and get it out of the pan. And here you go! Fancy chewy dinner rolls. They are very good. I can actually eat 2 of them in one sitting and I had a full stomach on. So I highly recommend you guys to try it out. Thank you guys so much for your continuous support, and if you are new, don't forget to subscribe because I have some awesome videos coming up. And also, you guys let me know what you want to see next, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye!